Have you ever sat down at the table, ready to nourish your body with a meal you believed was healthy, only to feel worse an hour later? Maybe your stomach bloated, your energy crashed, or your joints ached more than usual. Maybe you thought, well, I'm just getting older. But what if that wasn't true? What if the root cause wasn't age, but was sitting quietly on your plate? Vegetables you've trusted for years, what if the very foods you thought were your greatest allies are silently becoming your enemies, especially now in this stage of life? If you're a senior trying to take better control of your health, or someone caring deeply for an aging parent or loved one, then what I'm about to share is not just important, it's urgent. Because so many of us believe that vegetables, as a category, are always good. But what if I told you not all vegetables are created equal, and some are more dangerous than they seem, particularly for seniors? Yes, even the ones praised by doctors, the ones you've been steaming, chopping, or blending for decades. I'm going to take you through two of the most commonly consumed vegetables that are causing more harm than help in seniors today. But before we dive in, I want to gently invite you, if you're committed transforming how you or someone you love navigates aging, if you want real solutions rooted in elderly wisdom, motivation, inspiration, and true life lessons from the elderly, then like this video, subscribe, and drop a comment that says, I'm here because you are, and this is your moment of reflection. This is your time for change. Let's begin with the first culprit. It's a category we've long been told is the superhero of vegetables. Cruciferous greens, broccoli, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. Sounds like the Health Food Hall of Fame, right? And for some, maybe it is. But let's follow the story of a man named Frank. Frank is 66 years old. He's recently retired, and his doctor told him it was time to clean up his diet. So he did. Every night he steamed broccoli, tossed kale into salads, sautéed cabbage with garlic. On paper, he was doing everything right, but Frank began noticing something. He was always feeling bloated after dinner. His stomach felt tight, uncomfortable. Some nights he was so gassy he couldn't sleep. Other times he just felt tired, heavy, even irritable. But he brushed it off. I'm just getting older, he told himself. Except it wasn't just aging, it was the vegetables. Cruciferous veggies contain a type of sugar called raffinose, and our bodies, especially aging ones, struggle to break it down. That's because as we age, our stomach acid weakens, our enzyme production drops, and digestion slows. Raffinose ferments in the gut, causing gas, bloating, and discomfort. But it doesn't stop there. Cruciferous vegetables also contain goitrogens, compounds that interfere with the thyroid gland. For seniors, especially those already managing thyroid issues or unknowingly experiencing thyroid slowdown, this can make things worse: fatigue, weight gain, even cognitive sluggishness. And here's the cruel part. No one suspects the vegetables. No one blames broccoli. But maybe they should. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying you should never eat cruciferous vegetables, but how you eat them matters. If you eat them raw or barely cooked, they are far harder to digest. If you're 25, your body powers through. At 65 or 75, it may not. So here's what Frank did. He didn't quit veggies, he adapted. He started lightly steaming his broccoli. He switched to spinach and zucchini. He made roasted carrots his side of choice. Within 2 weeks, the bloating faded, his energy stabilized, and he stopped fearing dinner. That's not restriction, that's transformation. That's elderly reflections in action, learning from experience, adjusting with wisdom, and reclaiming peace from pain. Because senior health isn't about sacrifice, it's about knowing what your body needs now, not what it needed 30 years ago. Now I want to share Eleanor's story. Eleanor is 71 years old. Every Sunday for the past 30 years, she's made her family's famous tomato sauce. A big pot of love simmering on the stove, garlic, olive oil, basil, and lots of canned tomatoes. Her grandchildren beg for it. The smell alone brings people home. But lately, Eleanor's been feeling off. Her joints are more inflamed, her acid reflux wakes her at night, and at her last checkup, her doctor noted that her blood pressure was on the rise. She thought maybe it was just stress or time, but the truth? It was the sauce. More specifically, the canned tomatoes. Most canned tomato products are loaded with sodium, not for taste, but for preservation, thickness, and texture. For a senior with a slower metabolism, reduced kidney function, and a more delicate heart, that sodium sticks around. It causes fluid retention, raises blood pressure, and can lead to heart strain, even stroke. And there's another layer. Many canned goods are lined with BPA, bisphenol A, a chemical linked to hormonal disruption and immune sensitivity in bodies. BPA accumulates more easily and detoxes less efficiently. So every spoonful of that sauce Eleanor loved was delivering flavor. Yes, but also danger. And she had no idea, and this is the trap we fall into, isn't it? We do what we've always done, the habits we cherish, the recipes we trust. But the body we have now isn't the body we had then. Our biology evolves, our diet must evolve with it. That's life lessons from the elderly in action. Not clinging to the past, but updating our practices with grace. So what did Eleanor do? Did she give up her sauce? No, she switched to fresh tomatoes. She learned to stew them from scratch. She found BPA-free options with no added salt. The flavor stayed, the tradition stayed, but the health risks left. And now her sauce is not just delicious. It's nourishing, it's safe, it's a gift to her future self. And that's what I want for you. Now, before we move forward, I want to pause because right now in your fridge or pantry, you might already have these vegetables. You might be planning to eat them tonight. And maybe that's okay, but maybe it's time to listen to your body. Is your digestion off? Are your joints more inflamed? Are you crashing after meals or bloating more than usual? What if the answers you've been looking for aren't in a prescription bottle, but in your grocery list? What if healing started with understanding, with observation, with quiet, gentle reflection? This isn't about fear, it's about curiosity. It's about choosing intention over assumption. And now here's what's coming next. Because broccoli and tomatoes aren't the only troublemakers. There are still 3 more common vegetables seniors eat that could be doing quiet, consistent damage, and most people would never guess. One of them has more sodium than fast food. Another spikes your blood sugar faster than a candy bar. And one might be affecting your brain. That's all coming up next. But for now, ask yourself this. Am I eating with awareness? Am I aging with intention? And am I willing to change just a little to feel better tomorrow than I did yesterday? If you are, you're not alone. You're part of a new wave of elderly inspiration, senior motivation, and wisdom-led health. You're evolving, not just aging. You're choosing clarity, and that, my friend, is the beginning of everything. So like, comment, I'm here, and subscribe to join this growing community of people rewriting the script of aging. Because this isn't the end, it's just the beginning. Let's take a breath together. You've made it this far, and that tells me something. You care deeply about your health, your future, and maybe about someone you love who's getting older. And in this phase of life, every small... And now we're going deeper. Because while cruciferous vegetables and canned tomatoes may be sneaky culprits, they are not alone. There are 2 more types of vegetables that are silently undermining the health of millions of seniors. And one of them is sitting in almost every refrigerator across the country right now. Let's begin with something simple, crunchy, and surprisingly dangerous. Pickled vegetables. I know what you're thinking. Wait, aren't fermented foods good for gut health? Isn't kimchi good? Sauerkraut? And yes, natural fermentation can be powerful. But that's not what we're talking about here. Let's rewind to the story of Mr. Jenkins, a sharp, witty 79-year-old man who still walked to the park every morning wearing his signature straw. Every afternoon, he'd return home, sit on the porch, crossword in one hand, a jar of pickled cucumbers in the other. He called them his daily crunch, said they kept his stomach happy and his heart younger. But over time, something changed. That's when the dots began to connect. You see, most store-bought pickled vegetables, whether it's cucumbers, carrots, beets, even peppers, are not truly fermented. They are preserved in heavy brine, a mix of vinegar, chemical preservatives, and an enormous amount of sodium. That means each healthy pickle Mr. Jenkins enjoyed was secretly pushing his blood pressure higher, straining his kidneys, and forcing his heart to work harder than it should. And here's the part no one talks about. Seniors are more sensitive to sodium than any other age group. Why? Because kidney function naturally slows down, because blood vessels become less elastic, and because the body holds on to sodium longer than it used to. In younger adults, your body can adapt. In seniors, that same salty snack becomes a long-term threat. But people don't connect the dots, because it's just a pick, because it seems innocent. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you checked the sodium label on that jar? Chances are one serving contains more than 500 mg of salt. And, let's be honest, who eats just one pickle? So what can you do instead? You don't need to say goodbye to flavor. You can still enjoy that tangy, zesty kick. You just need to be smarter. Try making your own pickled vegetables at home with sea salt in moderation, not commercial table salt. Skip the vinegar and use natural fermentation methods. letting live cultures do the work, or opt for truly fermented foods like small-batch kimchi or sauerkraut, with no added preservatives or chemical. Mr. Jenkins made the switch. He started eating low-sodium homemade kimchi 3 times a week. Within 2 months, his blood pressure stabilized, his swelling disappeared, and that little walk in the park, it became longer, stronger, and more joyful. That's what elderly reflections are about. Not clinging to old habits, but transforming them into something wiser. That's not giving up tradition, that's evolving it with wisdom. But now let's talk about a food that's even more dangerous, because it hides behind comfort. It hides behind memories, behind nostalgia, and because of that, it's even harder to recognize as a problem. I'm talking about white potatoes. Mashed, baked, roasted, fried. However you prepare them, they are simple starch bombs. Now let's meet Charles, a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran with a big heart, a bigger smile, and a weakness for mashed potatoes. Every Sunday, his daughter made his favorite dish, roast chicken, green peas, and a big scoop of buttery, creamy mashed potatoes. He said it reminded him of childhood, of safety, of being home. But lately, Charles had been crashing in the afternoons. He felt tired, irritable, sometimes even foggy. His doctor noticed blood sugar fluctuations. His mood was uneven. He couldn't concentrate the way he used to. And that's when the truth came out. Those potatoes, the most innocent part of his meal, were acting more like sugar than food. Here's why. White potatoes have one of the highest glycemic indexes of any common food. When you eat them, especially mashed or baked, they convert almost immediately into glucose, spiking blood sugar levels, often more than a piece of bread or even a spoonful of sugar. For seniors dealing with insulin resistance, prediabetes, or metabolic syndrome, this becomes a serious issue. But even if you don't have a diagnosis, those sugar spikes lead to the dreaded sugar crash, fatigue, brain fog, irritability. And over time, those ups and downs contribute to deeper blood sugar imbalances, inflammation, and even memory decline. So here's the question: why are we still eating them like they're a staple? Because they are familiar, because they are comforting, because like Charles, we associate them with love. And that's the hardest kind of health risk to let go of, the one that feels like family. But here's the good news. You don't have to give up that comforting texture or warmth. You just need to make the right swap. Try mashed cauliflower. Soft, flavorful, and low in carbs. Add garlic, olive oil, maybe a touch of sea salt, and suddenly you have a dish that tastes like comfort, but behaves like medicine. Or switch to sweet potatoes, which have a lower glycemic load, more fiber, and are gentler on blood sugar. They're still rich, satisfying, and delicious, but they won't leave you crashing on the couch or fighting with your mood 2 hours later. That's how Charles turned his Sundays around. He didn't say goodbye to the meals he loved. He reinvented them. And in doing so, he gave his daughter something even more powerful than food. He gave her more time, more energy, more connection. This is what elderly wisdom looks like in real life. It's knowing that what worked at 40 doesn't work at 70. That honoring your body today means adjusting what you feed it. And that small shifts in the kitchen can become massive wins for your health, your mind, and your quality of life. Now let's pause, because if you've been paying attention, you've probably had a realization. Maybe you or someone you love is eating all of these vegetables, cruciferous greens, canned tomatoes, pickles, potatoes, thinking they're doing the right thing. But you've also noticed the bloating, the fatigue, the mood dips, the swelling, and maybe you've just been blaming it on getting older. But now you know better. You've opened the door to awareness, and that means you're no longer stuck. You're empowered. You're revolving. You're rewriting what it means to be in your 60s, 70s, or even 80s. Not through medication alone, but through food, through knowledge, through life lessons from the elderly, from the Franks, the Eleanors, the Mr. Jenkinses, and the Charleses who dared to ask, what if the food I trust no longer serves me? That's the question. And now that you've asked it, the answers are showing up. But we're not done yet. There's one more vegetable left. And this one, it's more complicated. Because it doesn't just affect your gut or your heart or your blood sugar. This one may be silently impacting your brain, your memory, your clarity, even your emotional health. And the scariest part, it's served in fancy restaurants, it's praised by chefs, and it's hiding in meals we consider elegant, even healthy. That's coming up in the final segment. And I promise, you'll never look at this vegetable the same way again. Let's begin with a moment of honesty. The journey you've taken so far, it wasn't just about food, was it? It was about reflection, about realization, about standing face to face with the habits and comforts we've held onto for years and asking a hard question. Are these still good for me? That's not an easy thing to do, especially as we grow older. Because the older we get, the more emotional memory we store inside our meals. The recipe your mother made when you were sick. The food your partner used to cook on quiet Sunday evenings. The snack you shared with your grandchildren the first time they stayed over. Food is never just food. It's connection, it's safety, it's the past, present, and future, served on a plate. That's why changing what you eat feels like letting go of pieces of who you were. But here's the truth. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means evolving. It means choosing life, energy, clarity, connection. And sometimes it means looking closer at a food that seems beautiful, nutritious, and completely harmless until you discover what it's actually doing inside your body. And that brings us to the fifth and final vegetable, one that affects not just your gut or heart, but potentially your mind. That vegetable is eggplant. I want you to picture this. Sunday evening, the kitchen glows with soft yellow light. You've just finished preparing a gorgeous tray of eggplant parmesan. The cheese is bubbling, the brie crumbs golden, and the aroma fills the air with comfort. Your loved one smiles, takes a big bite, closes their eyes. Just like old times, they say. But 1 hour later, they're pale, slightly dizzy, their stomach cramps. Their joints ache more than usual. You chalk it up to aging, to stress, to eating too much. But what if the real culprit was the eggplant? What if the very thing that brought joy also triggered pain? Let me tell you something most people don't know. Eggplant belongs to a group of vegetables known as nightshades. This group includes tomatoes, white potatoes, and peppers. All colorful, flavorful, and commonly praised by nutritionists. But they all share a compound called solanine. Solanine is a natural toxin that helps protect plants from insects. In healthy, resilient bodies, it may not do much harm, but in sensitive seniors, especially those dealing with arthritis, autoimmune conditions, or digestive issues, solanine can cause inflammation, flare-ups, joint stiffness, and gut irritation. And unlike sodium or sugar, which you can see on a label, solanine hides in plain sight. You don't taste it, you don't feel it until later. And by then, the damage is already done. Imagine a grandparent slowly feeling more tired, more irritable, less focused. Their hands ache while holding the newspaper. Their knees swell after a walk, and no one thinks it's the food. Because eggplant is a vegetable, right? Vegetables are good, that's what we've always believed. But the truth is, what's healthy for one person is not always healthy for another. Especially in later years, where every bite counts a little more, where inflammation accumulates a little faster, where healing takes just a bit longer. That's the quiet burden of aging, but it's also the hidden gift, because once you know what's happening, you can change it. Now let me share the story of Bernice, age 75, a retired librarian with a sharp mind and a warm laugh. She loved to cook, especially Mediterranean dishes. Baba ganoush, roasted eggplant with olive oil, caponata. But over the past year, she started noticing changes. Her hands, once steady, began aching after meals. Her thoughts, once crystal clear, started fogging. Her mood shifted. She felt tired, anxious, even forgetful. Her doctor chalked it up to early cognitive aging, but Bernice wasn't convinced. She started journaling everything she ate, writing down her symptoms, tracking what happened, and one night, after yet another helping of eggplant lasagna, the pain returned like clockwork. She made the connection. Slowly, she reduced her eggplant intake, then eliminated it entirely. Within a month, her energy returned. The aching subsided, her mind sharpened, and she realized something powerful. Her decline hadn't been inevitable. It had been optional. That's elderly wisdom. That's what happens when we pause, observe, and ask deeper questions. When we stop assuming and start listening to our own bodies. Now, this doesn't mean eggplant is poison, not for everyone. In small amounts, well cooked, it can be tolerated. Roasting or baking reduces solanine levels slightly. But if you or a loved one notices joint pain, bloating, mental fog, or fatigue after eating eggplant, don't ignore it, don't excuse it, test it, remove it for a few weeks, then reintroduce slowly. Watch how your body responds. That's the essence of elderly reflection. Not fearing food, but forming a wiser relationship with it. A partnership, not a punishment. And now that we've gone through all 5 vegetables, let's reflect. We began this journey with broccoli and cabbage, praised for their nutrients but difficult to digest in aging guts, and dangerous for seniors with thyroid imbalance. Then we uncovered the hidden sodium and BPA in canned tomatoes, quietly harming the heart, raising blood pressure, and disrupting hormones. We expose the false safety of pickled vegetables, often loaded with salt and vinegar, that strain elderly kidneys and contribute to silent hypertension. We pulled back the curtain on the humble white potato, a high glycemic starch that spikes blood sugar, triggers insulin crashes, and leads to fatigue and brain fog. And now, we've looked into the seductive softness of eggplant, masking a chemical that, for the wrong body, can mean joint pain, confusion, and hidden inflammation. These vegetables are not evil, but for seniors they may be incompatible. What once healed you may now harm you. What once gave energy now takes it away. And that's okay, because you're not who you were at 35. You've evolved, your needs have changed, and now, so must your plate. But here's the deeper truth. This wasn't really a list of vegetables, was it? It was a mirror. A mirror held up to your kitchen, your habits, your comfort zones. A mirror to the quiet discomfort you've normalized. The bloating, the aches, the forgetfulness. The "I guess this is just aging" story you've repeated to yourself or heard from your parents. But what if that story is wrong? What if you're not declining, but adapting? What if every meal is a chance not to preserve the past, but to shape a better future? A future with more clarity, more comfort, more presence. That is the power of small changes. That is the power of senior health rooted in wisdom, not fear. That is the meaning of inspiration drawn from elderly experience, not just medical charts. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go to your fridge, open your pantry, look again. Is there a bag of white potatoes? A jar of pickles? A can of tomatoes? Maybe a glistening eggplant on the counter you are planning to cook tonight? Don't throw anything out in a panic. Just pause, just reflect. Ask your body what it needs, ask your health what it's asking for, and maybe tonight you steam your broccoli instead of boiling it. Maybe you try sweet potatoes instead of white. Maybe you skip the canned tomatoes and reach for something fresh. Maybe you give your gut, your joints, your mind a little more love and a little less stress. Because every bite is a decision, not just about flavor, but about how you want to feel, how long you want to live with energy, with focus, with joy. This is what healthy aging looks like. Not fear, not limitation, but powerful, informed transformation. This is how the elderly inspire the world, by showing us that change is always possible, that health is always within reach, and that reflection can always rewrite the ending. So if this journey opened your eyes, if it made you think twice about something on your plate or someone in your life, hit like, tap subscribe, drop a comment that says I'm ready to evolve. Because we are building a community rooted in elderly wisdom, driven by senior health, and inspired by real-life reflections that matter. You are not alone on this path. You are not powerless. You are not aging. You are evolving, and you are doing it with care, with clarity, and with purpose. Until next time, eat with love, live with intention, and as always, take good care of yourself and the ones you love.